What's going on, guys? Welcome to Goal Line Hockey. So today we're going to be taking a look at the New York Islanders. We weren't talking about this a couple of years ago, but now we are in this situation. The Islanders are a cap crunch team, and we'll be taking a look at why in this video. If you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey, want to see the latest news around the NHL, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe down below, and let's take a look at the New York Islanders. Alright, so before we get into this video, I'm going to give a couple of quick plugs to our Instagram and Twitter handles at goalline_hockey. Links will be at the end of the video as well as in the description down below. And make sure to check out our Patreon. I'm hoping to get that going soon. A weekly podcast as well as game recaps, which we currently can't do right now, now that this season is officially over. But we will be doing that in the fall or in the springtime whenever the season begins. Make sure to check that out. Links are in the description for that down below. All right, so let's get into the video. So the New York Islanders, a team that just came off going to the Eastern Conference Final for the first time in over 20 years. And the Islanders went up against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm not going to brag here. As an Islander fan, they put up the most fight against the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup playoffs here in 2020. But now moving forward, what is the situation for the New York Islanders? And the New York Islanders are in a cap crunch, so we'll be taking a look at that here. So the first thing we're going to be looking at, forwards. And the Islanders have plenty of forwards that they have some issues with. Let's just say that. So the big one for the Islanders up front is the pink elephant in the room, and that is Andrew Ladd. Andrew Ladd is making $5.5 million for the next 3 seasons. For the next 3 seasons, and he's been playing in Bridgeport. Now, I like Andrew Ladd. He's a good player. He's a good guy, but he's not what Garth Snow signed back a couple of years ago. You knew the day that was signed, that was not going to be a good signing for the Islanders. He was the replacement to Kyle Oposo. I guess you could look at better than that. He's making over $6 million, and he's not really producing for the Buffalo Sabres. He's had some issues medically and stuff like that, which is not his fault. But the Islanders really, they didn't dodge a bullet, nor did they really avoid a bullet either. So that's kind of the situation with the Islanders. So $5.5 million for the next 3 seasons. Can the Islanders move that contract out in a deal? They could do that, but it's a sweetener. You got to sweeten the deal. You got to throw in probably one of those young prospects. And I don't think the Islanders, Lou Lamoriello, is going to want to do that. He may just eat that contract. I wouldn't be surprised if he got bought out next season. But as of right now, that's a hindrance on the Islanders. $5.5 million in Andrew Ladd. And another big one that we're going to be looking at here, now Pajot is making $5 million for the Islanders. I think that's a fairly good contract. I think that's fair. You also have Cal Clutterbuck making $3.5 million for this season and next. That's a little bit much for Cal Clutterbuck. I really like him as a player, but again, he's not the player that he used to be, so the Islanders have to be careful with that. And then Komarov, he's making $3 million for the Islanders over the next 2 seasons. So you've got $6.5 million for the New York Islanders, right, in Leo Komarov and Cal Clutterbuck. Now, this is no disrespect to those players, but now you're looking at $5.5 million in Andrew Ladd, $3.5 in Clutterbuck, and $3 in Leo Komarov. It's adding up. That's over $11 million on 3 guys that I don't even know. I mean, they're fringe scratch players. I hate to say it, but that's where the Islanders have been, and that's some of the situations that concerns me about Lou Lamoriello. Some of those contracts he signs are gold. I think the Pajot one is a good one. But again, the Jordan Everly, 5.5, not really a fan of that. And Anders Lee making $7 million. I don't know how I feel about that long term. So there's a couple of things here that Lou Lamoriello, I don't know how I feel I don't know if I feel too good about. But you know what? That's just the situation. And then looking at some of the guys the Islanders have to re-sign, they have Matt Martin, Tom Kuhnhackl, Derek Brassard, and the big one in the room. That's restricted free agent centerman Matt Barzal. And that's going to be an issue for the Islanders because they have to find a way to get Matt Barzal back. I don't know what they're going to do. Are they going to let him at least explore options in the free agent market like we saw the Leafs do with Mitch Marner? Are they going to try and hope that somebody offer sheets him with a low ball like the Canadians did with Aho last year, and then Lou Lamoriello just agrees to it and he signs it? I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Lou, but he has basically come out and said, we are going to re-sign all of our players. That's not an issue. Now, looking at defense. this is another spot where the Islanders have a hindrance because you're spending $11.5 million, $11.5 million on Johnny Boychuk, who is now 36 years old, as well as Nick Leddy, who is 29. He's still in the prime of his NHL career, but he's not worth $5.5 million. And those are 2 years left on each of those deals, so the Islanders not looking so good with that. So they got to figure out what they're going to do. Are they going to buy out Johnny Boychuk? That's been brought out, and it seems like they aren't going to do that. And can they still trade Nick Leddy? And I think they can trade Nick Leddy for a second or a third round pick. I've heard about the Winnipeg Jets being a destination. I've heard the Florida Panthers, the Detroit Red Wings, as well as the Buffalo Sabres. And let's never forget, the Ottawa Senators are another team that could be in the mix for that. So he could more than likely be going to an Atlantic Division team because there are plenty of teams there that could use his services. And the cap hit doesn't really concern a team like Ottawa because they are so low. They're at the cap floor, so they could use a contract like Leddy just to help bolster things up for them. And they pick up another defenseman for some of those young guys who continue to come up for the Ottawa Senators, as well as those other teams like the Red Wings and the Buffalo Sabres, who are in the midst of a rebuild. You've also got Thomas Hickey, who wasn't in the starting seven for the New York Islanders last season. He's making $2.5 million for the next 2 seasons. Again, that's another contract where it's like the Clutterbuck and Komarov situation. It's like, I don't know how I feel about that for the Islanders. I think that's too much money for a guy that's really not producing. He spent last season in Bridgeport. I don't know. It's a tough look there for the Islanders. And then some of the RFAs, and these are big ones for the Islanders. Now you have unrestricted free agent, 37-year-old Andy Green. I don't think he will be returning to the Islanders. This may be a Dennis Seidenberg situation where we saw a couple of seasons ago. He'll maybe get $1 million, and then he'll eventually get brought into a managerial role. I wouldn't be surprised if Lou Lamoriello did that for Andy Green, as well as Devin Tays and Ryan Pulock, who are on restricted free agents this summer, kind of like Matt Barzal. So the Islanders have 3 big guys that they have to worry about this offseason. And with the money they have, with how much money do they have? They have $18 million. Actually, no, they only have $8.5 million right now on their projected cap. So that's not good for the Islanders. Let's be honest. They have a little under $9 million in cap space to work with to sign Matt Barzal, Devin Tays, and Ryan Pulock. Now, is there the situation where the Islanders maybe let Devin Tays go? I think that could happen. I think the Islanders could be willing to let him go. I could see him being a good player, maybe for the Detroit Red Wings or the Ottawa Senators or the Buffalo Sabres. I know I keep saying those names, but I feel like those are the ones that just seem to make the most sense for Devin Tays. They need help on defense. He'd probably be a little bit cheaper. He did struggle a little bit in the Stanley Cup playoffs here in 2020, so they may be willing to get him. Maybe for a third-round pick, the Islanders could maybe move him out. Or maybe they just don't, maybe they accept the compensation in a restricted free agent situation. But that still means you still have to sign Ryan Pulock, who I could see him making between $6 to $7 million. And then you have Matt Barzal, who I could see him getting $10 million at least, maybe even 11. So, this is a tough spot for the Islanders. When you only have $9 million, you can't even consider signing Barzal, and you still have to sign Ryan Pulock, who is your best defenseman at this point. So maybe he's even worth 6 or 7. He may be worth north of 7 at this point. So then it brings about the question with Semyon Varlamov in between the pipes. Now, Ilya Sorokin is signed for $2 million this season, and Semyon Varlamov for the next 3 years at $5 million. So there's been rumors that the New York Islanders could move Semyon Varlamov's contract this offseason. That's another thing. So I think Lou Lamoriello is just exploring all the opportunities to clear out cap space. So now it's time for my predictions. What do I think the Islanders are going to do? What do I think they should do? I'm armchair GM of the New York Islanders. What would I do? Now, if I'm Lou Lamoriello, and I'm never going to tell Lou Lamoriello what to do because you don't ever do that. Lou Lamoriello tells you what to do. But hypothetically, what do I do? Now, I think goaltending is a position of strength for the New York Islanders. I would keep Semyon Varlamov and Ilya Sorokin. You've got $7 million in those 2 guys. So, all right, it's not perfect, but you have a good goaltending tandem. And we've seen how important that is in the Stanley Cup playoffs, minus the Tampa Bay Lightning. They have Andrei Vasilevsky. But for the Islanders situation, I think Varlamov and Sorokin, the 1A, 1B option has worked great with Varlamov and Greitz last season. I could see that continue here with Sorokin and Varlamov, just so Sorokin gets acclimated to the NHL, gets used to the game, because let's be honest, we don't know how good Sorokin is. So this could be a situation where he just ends up not working out. As crazy as that sounds, but we've never seen him play in the NHL. As excited as I am to see him here, we haven't seen him play yet. So we don't know what the situation is. The problem is, though, if Semyon Varlamov, after next season, is still making 2 years at $5 million, Sorokin's contract is only for this season. So if Sorokin has a solid year, he could be looking at $5 or $6 million next season. And that's where the Islanders run into an issue between the pipes, because now you've got $10 to $11 million in 2 goaltenders. That's not going to work. And that may be why Lou Lamoriello is willing to move Varlamov. But for this season, we're not worrying about the future right now. Let's just think hypothetically, it's Varlamov and Sorokin next year. That's my opinion. Then we move up to the defense. I think you try, and I don't know what you do with the Boychuk situation, because you saw what the Rangers had to give up to the Red Wings. They had to give up a second-round pick and Mark Stahl to just move out Mark Stahl's contract. So that's not going to be easy for the Islanders. And the Islanders don't have a second-round pick for the 2020 or the 2021 NHL draft. Do they move their first-round pick next year to just get rid of Johnny Boychuk? I don't know how I feel about that, because we don't know where the Islanders are going to be in 2 years from now. So I don't really like that stance. Can you move Nicoletti? I think the Islanders should absolutely move Nicoletti. I think that's one of the bigger things for the Islanders. Move out that $5.5 million. Thomas Hickey, that's a tough one. If you could move out Thomas Hickey for a third or a fourth-round pick, or maybe you even give up a third and a fourth-round pick and Thomas Hickey just to move him out, maybe you do that. That's something the Islanders could absolutely do. So you free up $8 million right there by moving out Leddy and Thomas Hickey. And that way you could sign Ryan Pulock and maybe Devin Taves or Andy Green. I don't think the Islanders are going to keep all three. And then you're looking at the forwards. This one could be interesting for the Islanders, because now you've got Casey Cizikas on the final year of his $3 million contract. That's a sweetheart deal. I wouldn't be surprised if he got $5 million next season from the New York Islanders. He's been just that good for the Islanders. He's 29 years old. I wouldn't be surprised if he made his payday in his next contract. You've also got Anthony Beauvillier making $2.1 million. That will expire next season as well. And the thing for the Islanders here, you've got to move out some of these bad deals. You've got to move out. Here's the thing. If you can't move out Nicoletti, which I think the Islanders can move out Nicoletti, if you could find a way to move out Andrew Ladd, I think that would be the best thing. But again, it's the same thing as Johnny Boychuk. What is going to be the price? Is it going to be your first-round pick just to get rid of Andrew Ladd? That's something that Lou Lamoriello has to decide. Is it worth $5.5 million? We saw the Toronto Maple Leafs do it a couple seasons ago for 1 year, just for the Hurricanes to take the remainder of his contract and then for them to buy him out. So I don't know how the Islanders are going to handle that situation. We're going to see how that works out. But I think, again, if the Islanders can't move out Andrew Ladd, what else can they do? What I think the Islanders could do, they could move out both Leo Komarov and Cal Clutterbuck. I think if they could find a way to move those guys, I mean, Clutterbuck, like I said, he's still got 2 years on that 3.5, and Komarov has 2 years on his $3 million. But if the Islanders could find a team that is willing to take those guys, that would be a huge, huge advantage for the Islanders, because now you free up another $6.5 million, which is more than you would have in the Andrew Ladd $5.5, and you may be able to get somewhat of a return for those guys. And why? And you may be asking, why are you going to get rid of Komarov and Clutterbuck? That's a huge loss on the Islanders' forward depth. You're exactly right, but the Islanders are able to bring in guys because they have the forward depth in the prospect system. You've got Michael Dal-Cole. You have Oliver Wahlstrom, Kiefer Bellows. You have guys in the system, Otto Koivula. The Islanders can bring these guys up next season. There's nobody saying that they can't. Even if they trade, and I love Casey Cizikas, but if the Islanders move Casey Cizikas and they bring up Otto Koivula, you're saving yourself money. You could be saving yourself $5 million in 2 years from now, bringing up Koivula and letting Cizikas walk, next season. That's something the Islanders can absolutely do. And Derek Brassard, he's one of those guys. I like him, but I don't see why the Islanders should bring him back. He was in and out of the lineup. That's a better spot for Koivola to take up. And if Brassard is looking for between $1 to $2 million, the Islanders save that money just by bringing up Otto Koivola next season. So we'll see how things go. And the fact that the Islanders are lacking draft picks over the next couple of years, they don't have their first this year, they don't have their second this year, and they also don't have their second-round pick in the 2021 NHL draft. So Islander fans and fans around the NHL, let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think the Islanders have to do to free up some cap space? What do you think is going to happen with Matt Barzal and Ryan Pulock? Do you think the Islanders will be able to extend them? And if so, how much money and how long on that deal? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you like what we're doing here at Goal Line Hockey and want to see the latest news around the NHL, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe down below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.